So, Jeff, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for your call. I appreciate your time. You've had an unusual encounter not that long ago.
Yes, most Thursday nights I'm out at Two Wells.
Yep.
I was there last night and with eyes wide open looking for what happened the previous Thursday night.
Okay, so that night was the 2nd of December?
2nd of December.
Okay, what time was it roughly when you encountered this thing?
It would have been, the meeting finishes at 9:30, so we might talk a little while after, so it would have been somewhere around 10 p.m.
Okay, so you were heading south or heading north?
Heading south, heading to Elizabeth.
Okay, so were you still on the Port Wakefield Road?
The old Port Wakefield Road, correct.
Okay,
Yeah, not the main, yeah.
Not the main highway, but the old one that runs back to Virginia.
Correct.
Yep, no worries. Had you crossed the Light River, or no, it's the Gawler River there, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it wasn't...
So it would have been between Two Wells and the Gawler River?
Yes.
Okay. So what happened, mate? Tell me all about it.
Driving along, had just seen what looked like a domestic cat on the road.
Yep.
And that ran off, and then, the sighting happened almost what seemed immediately when you're doing, 80 k's an hour.
Sure.
So this thing ran, as I'm heading south, it ran from right to left across the road.
Yep.
And then it took enough time to sort of get into the brush for me to spot the tail and the hind quarters, which were striped. But I noticed the head. It was what? I'm like, what is that? And so what I can tell you, because I've owned dogs, I have cats, and I've fed foxes, it was definitely none of those. I'm certain of that now.
Okay. And that's, based on your own experience. You when you say you've hand-fed foxes, did you hand-raise some that were strays, or?
No. I've just, I've been in a situation where foxes have been quite tame, and they've actually sat on my car, and I've hand-fed them.
Yeah, okay.
Just very hungry local foxes down at Mawson Lakes, that was.
Yeah, okay, yep.
There's lots of foxes around.
Yeah, there's plenty of foxes in suburban Adelaide.
Yeah, so I think, these particular foxes were, probably getting used to humans and hungry enough to let them be fed. However, it was not a fox, and I'm certain of that. And so what I did is, as soon as I got home, I looked up Tasmanian tigers and just looked at photos, and I showed it to my wife, and she's going, well, I didn't see the detail, because I was yelling when she was sort of looking at her phone. She just sort of looked up at the last minute, so I'm not sure what she saw, if anything.
Oh, okay, yep.
But when I looked at the photos, I just said, well, I'm convinced.
Sure. What sort of distance were you from it, do you think?
Well, at first sighting, I would suggest no more than 20 metres, maybe close as 10 metres, but then as it ran across the road, I slowed down because it took its time getting into the brush. So I had enough time to have a good look at its tail and its hindquarters, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it, disappeared into the brush on the side of the road.
No worries. What sort of car do you drive, just out of question? Not particularly for any reason other than the brightness of the headlights.
Well, we've got two cars, and to be honest, I can't really remember which car we were in.
Yep, but the headlights are pretty bright.
Yeah, well, they're both newish cars, and newer cars, like I flash cars sometimes because I think they've got their full beam on, but it's just new cars, you know what I'm saying?
Sure, so you had good lighting on it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you're roughly 20 metres when you first spotted it, as it got off the side of the road, you probably would have been quite close.
Yes.
So, what, 5 metres maybe?
Well, look, it was still sort of tailing in as we were going past, so I had a good look at it.
Okay, so you got a good 4 or 5 seconds of it as you broke and slowed down?
Yep.
Excellent. Was there anything unusual about it other than the stripes and the tail that you noticed from memory?
Well, the first thing was the head of it. As it was running across the road, I just thought, what is that? Because I'm looking at the head and the face. So I got a full view of it, but I was, for some reason I was focusing on its head because it just looked. What the hell is that? It's not a fox. It's not a dog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, I would just rule out a cat straight off because it was kind of ironic that we'd seen a cat, only minutes before.
Yeah, yeah.
This big fat black and white cat rolling on the road, and then it just ran, of course. And I don't think that was feral either. I think it was a domestic cat.
Sure. So you've got an image of a cat in your mind only a few minutes before, and then something else that's a completely different looking animal pops out. So that's really good, actually. That's very handy for, discerning.
Point of reference.
Yeah, absolutely. Point of reference, absolutely. And so immediately too. So
yes.
If you were going to say how big this thing was, how would you compare it to a breed of dogs, say? As big as...
Well, let's put it this way. In terms of the word I'm looking for.
Comparison.
Yeah, no, the word starts with P. In terms of size, if it was a dog, you would imagine it would have much longer legs. So it was quite sleek.
Okay, yep.
And it was quite long. So I would suggest it would be, at least 3 times the length of the cat. You know what I mean?
The cat that you saw?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's reasonably large. If you were was it as big as a German Shepherd, or maybe as big as a cattle dog sort of thing in size?
Yeah, in length. Its tail was long and thin, but it was definitely striped.
Yep.
Like it had rings around it, and then I thought of a ringed possum, a ringtail possum. Well, they're ringtail possums don't actually have rings on their tails.
No, they just have a white tip.
So, and I've done, I used to read meters, so I used to see possums actually in meter boxes on occasions, and I've had a fair bit to do with possums as well over the years. So there definitely was not a possum.
Way bigger than a possum.
So, and like I said, I was only thinking about it before. You're driving along and you're going home, yet I wouldn't even think about this sort of animal. Like, it's not like I'm out there looking for them. It's the furthest thing from my mind.
Yeah, was seeing a thylacine running down the road.
Yeah.
Sure.
And there's this very unusual creature that I could not identify, as being anything else until I got home and looked at the photos and went, well, this is the only thing that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Well, that's a good observation. That's a good point. Did you actually get a glimpse of the actual colour of it, or it was a bit too of a flash of what happened sort of thing? Did you see a colour or just stripes that were standing out?
Yeah, really just the contrast. I mean, it's hard, because there's, even with a week having lapsed. But I didn't contact you straight away because I just sort of wanted to process it, I think.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough, mate. That's all good.
A friend of mine believed, and his son believed they saw one in middle Australia somewhere, and they both had a moment where they just went, "We have just witnessed something, but we don't know what it is," and we're a bit
in shock.
He'd never talked about it until I mentioned it.
Ah, there you go.
It was like a sigh of relief for him.
Yeah.
He wasn't insane after all. I mean, that's debatable, but he does play guitar.
Yeah, well, you're a drummer, aren't you?
Yeah.
I'm a singer, mate, but I try not to be a dick like most singers.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Neil, that's all I can tell you. I mean, it was quick.
Yeah.
There's no point putting anything on it other than what it was.
And what happened?
A strange creature ran across the road. My experience with animals tells me that it was none of the above. It was something I had never seen, and I'm convinced of that. Whether I've definitely seen a Thylacine, I can't obviously prove that.
Sure.
But I would, let's put it this way, I would be surprised if it wasn't one.
Well, the good news I've got for you is they've been seen in that area many times over the years. I've got sightings from Virginia, Lower Light, a bit further north at Dublin, Windsor, Malala, Gawler on the Gawler bypass only last year, early this year on the Gawler bypass. And I do believe they use the Gawler River and the Light River as a bit of a thoroughfare. It's where they can sort of stay out of sight a bit. They were seen on the Northern Expressway only a few months ago as well. There was one seen out there.
Yep.
So I don't think you're crazy for a minute, and you're certainly not alone in the vastly increasing amount of people coming forward with sightings of these things.
I mean, given that when I think I posted it on Facebook on the evening.
Yep.
And I just said, call me crazy, but I'm pretty sure I just saw a Tasmanian tiger.
Yeah.
Then probably 3 people came out of the woodwork, including the guitar player I mentioned.
Yep.
And
reckon they'd seen one as well.
And one had said, allegedly there are sightings near Malala, and I went, well, Malala's just next door to where I was.
They're very solitary animals, and they move around on their own a fair bit. I think the male sort of stays away from the female except for when she's got young in the pouch.
Yep.
And that's about the only time they stay as a family group. And then as the young get to the 2-year mark and they start to learn to hunt themselves, I think they'll hang around in a family group and teach them to hunt, and then they'll eventually leave and she'll have more pouch young. And they're very slow growing. They only breed every 2 or 3 years, so that's why they're so elusive and so wily. But every now and then they screw up and someone sees them late at night or during the day. I had 3 guys on a mountain bike trek through Central Australia that were doing this charity ride about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, and one of them's a world champion mountain biker, and so he's no nut job. Anyway, they were coming down.
Well,
Well, look, It's everybody. They're random, you know. It's a drummer, it's a cop, it's a accountant. Random people see these things, you know.
Yep.
So I don't judge anybody at all because you can't afford to. But they saw one at about 11 a.m. coming through the Flinders Ranges on this trek they were doing, and it's the only time they didn't have their GoPros on their helmets. The only time.
Wow.
And this thing walked past. And they'd been filming their whole ride, basically, and all three of them saw it in broad daylight. It was about 50 metres up in front of them, but by the time they got to the spot, it had taken off up a creek bed.
Yep.
But they, you know, they'll eat a fresh roadkill. They don't mind fresh takeaway food. If they don't have to hunt it, they'll eat it. They'll take chickens, they'll take dogs, they'll take possums, they'll eat rabbits, they'll eat just about anything. But they're very selective. They're one of the bits of evidence we find that is very common all over the mainland is kangaroos with their heads torn off and the lungs are taken out through the neck cavity.
Right.
So, you know...
They're definitely Australian then.
Oh, yeah, they're very Australian and they're very... You know, they're off... I'm talking adult male western grey kangaroos that are 6 foot tall with their head clean gone.
Yeah.
You know, that's a formidable predator.
That's some serious teeth, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely not foxes, and it's definitely not feral dogs or dingoes, because they don't feed that way. They feed differently, you know. But, you know, you talk to an expert, they'll tell you you've seen a mangy fox, but you talk to me and I'll back you up 100%. So...
no, it's not a mangy fox. Somebody already suggested that.
Yeah.
Nah. Look... you know, I'd almost bet on it not being a fox.
Yeah. No, you know foxes, mate. It's. Was there anything particular about the gait, or you were too busy in shock looking at the stripes and stuff to realise that because a lot of people notice that the thing walks peculiar.
Yes, I was just going to say it seemed to. It seemed to be. Not back heavy, but it seemed to lean forward when it ran, you know what I mean? Like
so it's lower at the front and higher at the back?
Yeah, like on a slant.
Okay, so have you seen Paul Day's footage on YouTube from Moonta?
No.
Okay, well, if you go to our YouTube channel, same name, Thylacine Awareness Group of Australia, on there, there's a documentary called Living the Thylacine Dream. And in about the first 10-15 minutes, I interview a guy, and his footage is there in that interview. And that was filmed at Moonta about 4 years ago. And have a look at that, and then flick us a message and tell me if there's any similarity to what you saw with that locomotion. Because that animal appears to be running with its front feet and kind of hopping and favouring a leg on the back. They kind of almost run like a rabbit when rabbits run.
Yeah.
A little bit weird. They sort of almost hop and skip with the back feet while they're kind of running with the front feet.
I could, that kind of really describes it for me.
Yeah, I had a lady, Sue Pitcher, who contacted me earlier on this year, and she had a sighting from the I think it was the late 1980s in New South Wales, but she never forgot it. And she was talking about this locomotion like it was either injured or almost drunk, she said, the way it ran. So I redirected her to Paul's footage, and she got back to me and said that's exactly how it ran, just like that.
Yep.
Now, I had a bit of a discussion online on the radio, on ABC Radio in Adelaide, about Paul's footage, and one of the eminent professors from Adelaide Uni, Christopher Helgen, he's not there anymore, he's moved on, but at first when he saw it, he just fobbed it off as a mangy fox, and then he actually had a look at the footage on a laptop instead of a phone, and he said, well, it's not a fox, but it's probably just an injured cattle dog, and left it at that. But he determined that it definitely wasn't a fox. So, you know, he still wouldn't put his credibility on the line and say that looks like a thylacine, but, you know, that's the way these academics roll, sadly. It's all about their reputation, not about science.
I mean, if they got, letters behind the name, then they're going to be
Yeah.
automatic to the point of protecting themselves like that. And the really good thing about this is that people that have no vested interest. Really, I don't.
That's right.
In a sense, Neil, it doesn't matter to me whether it was or not. I'm just telling you what I saw.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Look, I've got an invested interest because I've met hundreds of people like you, and I support you guys, and I want to see the animal recognised and properly protected by our idiot governments. But, they've got millions of dollars to throw at trying to clone one, but they haven't got 10 cents to try and prove it's there. So, it goes to show what their agenda's all about, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And, it sort of struck me last night because, my eyes were peeled on the way home last night.
Yeah, I bet.
I want to see my friend again,
Yeah, well, he's probably the other side of the Barossa Valley now.
Yeah. Well, the worst case scenario would be that you actually hit the thing, but that would prove beyond all doubt that it exists.
I think that's what's going to happen in the end, mate. I've always had this hunch that I probably won't prove it, but someone will come out and prove it for me. So that'll be my job done then. I've raised awareness. I've made a lot of noise about it. I've got the media talking about it again. Whether they laugh at me or not is beside the point. I don't really care.
No.
The fact that I've got them off their arse and interested in it is what counts. So we'll get there.
That's the thing for me, with my friends, and some of them said, well, they're extinct, and that's the end of the discussion. I really don't give a shit what they think.
That's it.
I know what I saw, and I know what I didn't see. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And look, if your other friends that have mentioned they've seen one want to get in touch with me, by all means, pass on my details. If they want to have a chat, I'll be more than happy to chat to them.
No problem.
Awesome. Look, it's been a pleasure, Jeff. Thanks a lot for your time, mate.
No, thank you, Neil. Happy to be part of this, what is looking like a really interesting adventure, mate.
Yeah, no, it is. It's certainly kept me busy for the last 7 years, I can tell you. I'm in Tassie now, but I'm Adelaide born and bred. And the first, 4 or 5 years of this was all trying to prove it in South Australia. I've actually got a mate who lives in Gawler who's mad keen as well. So if at some stage he may want to get in touch with you, you happy to have a chat to him?
Absolutely. You got my number?
Yeah, no worries. All right. Well, I'll forward it on to him. His name's Mark Taylor. And he may get in touch, even if it's just to see the actual spot roughly where you think you might have seen it.
No problem.
All right. Good work, mate.
Happy to help.
Excellent. Thanks very much for your time.
Good on you, Neil.
Cheers, mate.
See you, bye.
Bye-bye.